All of these stories that you're going to be hearing are devastating, heartbreaking, tragic, and preventable. But this one in particular got to me. It's the story of Indiana, who's from Australia, 15 years old, and had been thinking for a long time about taking her life. She even wrote a manifesto that they found after she passed. Her mom, Laura, and her stepdad, Con, were just blending their families together. I mean, what's remarkable is how strong they both feel in their marriage and separately. This is a story about resilience and love. Let me introduce you to Laura and Con. Good morning.
Hello, how are you going?
Good morning.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell me a little about who you lost and how it happened?
So yeah, we lost our daughter. Her name is Indiana. She took her own life 2 weeks before her 16th birthday, so she's a forever 15. And this happened in September of 2023, so just over 2 years ago now. And she is my first biological child, so a very momentous person in everybody's life, particularly in mine, being that she was the one that made me a mum. So
Tell me about her.
she was singular. You know, even when she was alive, we used to say that she was a singular person. She was the most intelligent person I've ever met, very complex. It sounds overly poetic to say tortured. She was a tortured soul from the moment she got here till the moment she left. Funny, the most funny and irreverent person. You couldn't have any kind of a serious conversation with her because she would throw something completely inappropriate into the mix. So it doesn't matter, but she was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Her eyes were the kind of blue that people write about and you think, well, no one's eyes are that blue. And Indy's were that blue. But that's just the surface, really, of who she was. Yeah.
Con, do you have anything to add?
I'm actually her stepfather, so I actually only got to know her for 6 years.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so 6 years. I just remember being actually quite nervous to see her because she was spoken about as kind of the matriarch, even though she was about 9 years old. We got along really well, and it wasn't very long before she started calling me dad. It was pretty quick.
As I remember, one of the other younger sisters started calling him dad first, and I think she was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Was her biological dad in the picture?
That's a really complex situation. So he was to a point, and then my children had a foster care experience. They went into the care system. And during their time in the care system, it was decided for some of them that contact with the birth father wasn't a good thing. But when she came home, there hadn't been contact with the birth father for a number of years when she passed away. She did grow up with her birth father. So I have 8 children. 1 is with Khan and the other 7 are all with the same father. And it's a very complex topic there. And some of the things he did to her turned out in her suicide note. So I think it's...
It's highly relevant, but there's so much more to it as I think it is with most suicides.
Indiana is so powerful to me because her writing was so amazing. I mean, obviously so tragic and sad, but she was so bright.
Yeah.
And I mean, her writings were like up until the very last moment. The creativity is profound.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, even like at the beginning, I keep thinking of ways I should have described her, and I think that's going to keep happening throughout the conversation. Brave. I forgot brave. The main thing about her was that she was so brave. But yeah, we didn't just get a note, we all got a note. And then there was like a manifesto, Khan called it, just books and books of her writing about over the months how she'd felt, what she was experiencing, what she thought that meant for her for the rest of her life, decisions she was making, why she was making them. Just in the very limited research I've done and the reading that I've done, I think there is strong research that discussion of method can actually be detrimental in conversations around suicide, whereas we know that speaking about suicide itself is the opposite. It's a protective factor. But I do think there's probably quite a lot of strong research that discussing method and going into it is never a good idea. At least that's what we're kind of told over here. I don't think it's needed. I think it's a little gory. I think we can around it. And obviously people are going to be able to put together what she did. I don't think I need to kind of...
It's
It
what?
is online. So if you really wanted to search
Yeah.
it, you just search up her name and you'll find it.
The thing that I wanted to get across about that is that she did maths equations and scientific equations to ascertain her likelihood of, I hate the word success, of her death being instant, being as pain-free as possible, but most importantly, being successful, I can't think of a better word, in the way that she would die. She didn't want to attempt and have it not work. And so the fact that she had actually gone to the effort of using her brain to do these mathematical equations and things to work out velocity, and I mean, all of these things were incredibly, I can't even understand what she was on about. So I planned it down to the last minute, but then also on the actual day or night itself, she actually wrote minute by minute, pretty much, what she was doing, what she was thinking, what she was eating, how she was feeling. And I think for us, or especially for me, that's been a lot of comfort, because I know that my child wasn't impulsive. I know that she wasn't scared. I know that she wasn't any of those things. And the way that she described herself feeling was a mix of peace and excitement, which it goes without saying that none of us want our loved one to suicide. I shouldn't even need to say that, which I don't think I do. But that being the case, how many of us wish for a passing where we're peaceful and excited? And I think
So
one
true.
thing, I think one thing that listeners will relate to is that when you lose someone to suicide, you find comfort in what you can, in the most ridiculous places sometimes. And for me, that's one of them, is knowing that of all the ways that unfortunately our children can pass, and we think about accidents and we think about these poor young people that battle for years to survive horrendous illnesses, and my daughter was peaceful and excited. So sometimes that's the only thing I can really hang on to.
Yeah, that's one thing. One of the many things really that separates Indiana a little bit is the orchestration of what she did, how she did it. The length of time is unusual. Her age is unusual. The method was unusual for a girl.
She's an outlier in pretty much all of the statistics around suicide, apart from her age.
So she visited the home for a couple of days. So she was living at her grandma's at the time, and she visited the family home. We actually had, as a family, two of the best days that we'd had for quite a long time. I actually remember saying to the police when they said, did you know she was going to do it? I said, no, she fooled me. She fooled us. But the truth is I was suspicious. I'd even rung her grandma and said I believed she was planning on killing herself again the day before. But for everyone else, it looked like recovery.
But I think we kind of respectfully disagree on some of that as well, because some of Indy's writing can be interpreted as she was also 50-50 between recovering and going through with it right up until the last moment, because she's got writing about, I'm actually trying to recover. I'm trying to eat. I'm dating. I'm planning my driving lessons. I'm planning my senior years at high school. But there was an equal part. She does experience herself in two parts. Indy with an I was the good one, and Indy with the Y. But it wasn't DID or anything like that, because she was aware of both. But I think from what I've put together, the Indy with the Y really was very homicidal, wanted to kill other people, had no empathy. That was the part that kind of Indy had put all of the bits of herself together that weren't great and had gone, okay, you go over there, and the me I like is going to be over here. And from what it looks like in the writings, that Indy Y was getting more powerful, and Indy I, being the altruistic, the real her, I think was becoming very aware of how little control she was having over Indy Y at all. And I think from her writing, she's really trying to do all the right things and the healthy things, and would still lapse back into Indy Y way more than she liked. And I think she'd got to the point where she knew Indy Y was imminently going to hurt and or kill a loved one. We don't know who. And I think, that was just one factor in it. But we do see in the writings that she's struggling with herself, and she did recover. She started eating healthily. She gained weight to the point that she looked healthy, because she'd been struggling with purging. She had stopped cutting. She had Yeah, everything. She was talking about her sweet 16 and driving lessons and all of the rest of it, and dating her first boyfriend. It wasn't out of the blue because it was coming. But I think even to the last moment, she'd gone, is there another way? Is there another way? Can I live through this? Can I live with this? And I think in her mind, and it's awful because I can respect that feeling of permanence when you're 15 and your frontal cortex and things haven't finished growing, and you just know that this is how things are for the rest of my life. And we can sit here and go, oh my God, you hadn't even, even though we had got her to psychiatrists, we tried things with her. She'd only just started. There was this treatments coming that we don't have yet that could have helped her by the time she was 20, but she couldn't see it like that. But I think, finding out that she had died was probably one of the most surreal things that I've ever been through. It was the classic knock on the door at 3 a.m. I had just gone back on some of my meds that make me basically pass out overnight. You can't wake me up. You can't wake me up in the morning. But I got up for this knock. I don't know what it was, but I was straight up, straight out of bed, threw my dressing gown on. And I originally thought it was a call about fighting or shouting. Not that we get the police called because we fight or shout, but it had happened once or twice a few years ago when we were going through a hard time in the relationship. So I thought, oh God, someone's been fighting in the neighborhood and they've just presumed it's us and they've come to us. And I opened the door, I'm like, we're all asleep. Khan, who'd come up behind me, had kind of realized, well, God, you've got 3 detectives. This isn't good. It took me a while, actually. They said, can we come in? I'm like, yeah, no, okay, fine. They're probably going to need to see that we're not the ones that are fighting. And it still hadn't clicked. Sorry, I have trouble remembering the words that they were using, but not what was being said, which is weird.
I think trauma does that.
Oh, massively, massively. I remember things like I sat down. I don't know if they told me to sit down, and I immediately knew someone was hurt or something was bad. My second oldest child, biological child, is one of the great loves of my life. She's living in a residential foster home, and I thought she had been involved in some kind of a fight or an accident because she was living the kind of lifestyle at the time where out at night using substances. I'm not her legal guardian parent anymore, so I don't have control over those things, and it was an ongoing kind of worry for us. I was just waiting for them to say her name, to be quite honest, and I was preparing. They mentioned the location. They said, is there any reason that your daughter, and they still hadn't told me which daughter, would be at this location? And I was like, well, yeah, she hangs out at those types of places all the time. My second daughter, she spends time there at night with her friends. And, no criticism to them. They all did a lovely job. And I think that would probably be the worst part of their job is going and telling families. But they were using these very abstract terms like there's been an accident or there's been an incident or something like that. And I had it in my head that my second daughter, because I'm still on the second daughter, has been, at the train station and has been fighting on the platform and has fallen. So that is where my head was going. And then they were flicking through, and this is a very strong memory I have. The one, again, very nice male detective he seemed to be very slowly flipping through his little notebook, flipping. And I'm just saying, look, which child is it? Which daughter is it? And he's just flicking and using these terms about incidents, and I still don't know if they're alive or dead at this point. And I'm steeling myself to hear my second child's name. Not that that would have been any better, but that's who I thought it was. And he said, it was Indiana. And my brain simultaneously notices Khan going, no, 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 no. Just in that very, no, 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 very, very, no. And at the same time, I'm like, it's a bloody dream. It's a dream. What? Wake up, wake up. And it's so strange because I've heard of people saying, I thought I was dreaming. I'm like, how can you think you're dreaming? Your brain does this. Well, my brain did this weird dissociative thing where it went, it's a dream. Just for a few minutes. And then, my very Yorkshire genes kicked in and went, no, 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 get up, sort this out. Now you've got things to do. Up you get. And the first thing that kicked in for me was, I'm not wearing any underwear. I've just put this dressing gown on, and this is very serious. There's 3 detectives here. My husband's screaming, and my daughter's, I thought at the point, had been hurt. I've got no knickers on. I was like, look, I'm terribly sorry. Can I go and put some underwear on, do you think? And I look back now and I'm like, God, you're so British. Like, why is that the first thing that you thought of? But I don't judge myself too much, because I'm like, the way that my brain is I have to talk to these people, and I'm going to be doing this and pulling my stupid dressing gown shut and worrying about it. So it was so nice. They were like, well, yes, but can you leave your bathroom door open a bit? And I'm like, why would they need me to do that? It still hadn't really hit me that people might go and hurt themselves after news, but they still hadn't said that the person had passed, I don't think, or they might have. But I go and I get dressed and I come back out, and then they let the female talk to me. And I'm sorry, guys, like, the guys do a lovely job, but they let the little Scottish lady talk to me. And she was the one who was like, okay, this is what has happened. And it's then I said, look, are we talking about that she's in a coma, she's hurt, or is she dead? And she was like, she has died, or she's, again, I don't remember the words. You'd think I would, but I don't. But from there, my response was, what do we need to do? I never cried. I didn't scream. And I actually feel a bit cheated by that when I look back. I'm from a culture where you don't show big demonstrations of emotion. I also have a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, which is categorized by very big emotions. So obviously all through my life, I've learned to not do that. It's too much, and people will get very... And then having your children in care, that's also used against you. If you show too much emotion, you are harming your children by crying too much or shouting or what have you. And so, I just, okay, what do we do? What do I have to do? And so it was, reading all the paperwork and consenting to an autopsy. I had to identify her through the contents of her wallet, which was quite hard to see all of her little things that had been in her backpack kind of spread out on one of the metal tables. It was nothing gory, but just seeing those things spread out. Like, I watch a lot of true crime. I watch a lot of, quite full on things, but to see my daughter's little things spread out, and that's hers. One thing I do judge myself for was one of the first things that I thought when I started to feel those emotions was, Khan's going to leave me. He's going to leave me. We just come through a really hard 2 years, and we had just started to fix our marriage back up. I have had therapy. I want to make that really clear. I'm very fortunate to live in Australia, where I could go and get some pretty good free therapy, few sessions. I judged myself hard for that, because my first thing on finding out that she was dead was to worry about my marriage and to say to Khan, I need you to help me survive through this. And I thought, what kind of woman thinks that? But as I've unpacked it, and as I've gone through that stoicism that I kind of do have in that way, it was done. If they'd said she's in a coma, nuts to the marriage, get me to the hospital, I need to hold my baby's hand, I need to sit. She was gone. It was done. There was nothing there that I needed to do or work on. What I needed to work on was keeping him okay, to keep the family okay, to keep the other kids okay, to keep that normalcy going, I think is where my brain went. So I did judge myself for that quite harshly in the beginning.
How are you now with it?
Yeah, I'm good. I see where that came from. Like I said, if she had still been clinging on, I wouldn't have thought about anybody but get me to her.
Yeah.
But knowing my brain the way I do, because it was finished, there was nothing I could help with her. It was done.
And you can't help in those situations. Like, trauma is another kind of animal, and it makes everyone do things so differently.
Yeah, well, mine's a little bit different, because I had the suspicions, and that's what the no was about. I should have done more, or I feel I should have done more, but I know that nothing much would have changed that outcome. There's been a lot of suicide in our daughters, or particularly with my eldest biological daughter. She'd already been through 3 suicides of friends. So one at 12, 13, and 14, I think it was, 2 girls and 1 boy. It was already highly on my radar. I spoke to a lot of friends and family about it, and realized just how serious suicide is as one of the leading causes of death. And once I realized that, she was gone, my thoughts went to, I guess, immediately into like advocacy, I guess, as Laura's reminded me that one of the things I said to the police is, what are you going to do about all these kids killing themselves?
And then you
'Cause
said,
it
I'm
was,
so tired of being right.
yeah, it was. I guess the emotional flood was similar internally. It was a mix. It was a mix of emotions. I remember I did a group, and it was about sharing your story of experience of suicide. And within that group, there was one lady that talked about it being a relief. I won't say that's the case with me, but there is this little smidgen of relief because there had been a previous serious attempt. And one of the things she said at that first attempt was, "You're not going to stop me." And that kind of stuck with me, with her. So yeah, there's a lot comes up, and it's really hard. I think what happens for those left behind, particularly after suicide, the whole system in every country that I've researched needs to change. It needs to be more supportive. There needs to be
100%.
more. We have a service called Standby, and the police will give you this card, and they're good. The services we have are good, but not enough.
Do you think, Con, excuse me, do you think that
Right.
that it's because it's been such a like secretive thing for so long, that because there was so much shame around suicide, that maybe that's why there aren't a huge amount of resources, because people aren't talking about it?
Yep. That's definitely part of it. The other side to it is suicide in Australia, in Queensland. You know, the top end services and politicians on this, it's a tick and flick death. It's a choice. So you choose make this choice, and unless there's any evidence directly before the suicide, no one's guilty, and let's all just move on.
Especially in this lower socioeconomic.
Yeah. If you got enough money to pay for these services, to pay for lawyers, to pay for investigators, then that's great. But yeah, down here in the doldrums, you don't really get that. It's you get told to move on, and then the shame starts coming in, and I think that's, yeah, it's complicated, and that's why I researched so much. This is how we got in contact. Was I want to know more so I can do better. So also, so I can share that too, so we can do better. When you look at different countries, it changes a little bit, but yeah, there's so much more we can do supporting families and friends. We forget about the friends. Like, the friends can reach out to these services, but I think, yeah, in some way we need to be a little bit tougher. I guess. I don't know. It's
Tougher how?
with the families that I've spoken to, a lot of them just want to withdraw, and that's fine. It took me a while to accept that.
Oh, the friends that like don't know what to say to you guys, so they kind of step away. Is that what you mean? Like they kind
Well,
of
more the family. We found the family are the ones that stepped away, and this friend stepped in. But with the services side, every one of Indy's friends that I've spoken to, because she was at school, said that they felt that they were just left behind. Schools didn't help.
ugh.
Um, there's not much support out there. Parents don't want to talk to children about suicide.
We've had such a confidence knock as a parent too. You think, am I going to get this wrong as well?
Yeah. Well, there's all that. So I do understand. I don't want to be horrible, but
No, it's real for you.
yeah, it's not getting better. It's getting worse. So, well, it's plateaued at the moment. We'll call it. It's not still going up at a dramatic rate as it has in the past. Around 2000, we've had a increase. Social media is probably a lot to do with it.
Can you talk a little bit about grief and about your grief? I'll have Laura talk about hers, and kind of how your kids collectively have navigated
They're
it.
the troopers. Yeah, they're the troopers. If anything, they're the rock. I guess kids process stuff differently, but we're a lot more open. We have different approaches. Laura's more the social worker side. I'm a little bit more of the raw not hide its side. So the only thing we don't really talk about to the kids is the method. But I will talk about method, but not hers specifically. I've read the reports, so I know exactly what's happened. With that said, I think you still need to be very connected and aware that they don't understand what's going on. Like with their youngest, they don't understand what death is. And so that is something that needs to be reconnected with. I think you shouldn't let stuff go because you think it's not relevant anymore, especially with Lyric. She was 3 or 4, and extremely close. She got her own personalized letter. Most of the pictures in Indiana's phone were of Lyric.
She handled it probably better than anyone, but she was she came to us and asked questions, which made it easier because we were sort of going, how do we even start explaining suicide? Like, obviously, when we got the kids out of bed, they were all awake anyway, unfortunately, and told them that she had passed away. But Lyric, even though she was 4, was the one that had said, why did she die? She wasn't sick. And then because Indiana had been a cadet, she thought, like, did she die in the army? Did she die in the war? So we were kind of thrust into having to like think on the spot and discuss suicide. But Lyric made it easy for me, because even the first moment when I told her that Indy had died, Lyric said, oh, like Puss in Boots, she got to her last life and then you don't come back. So from the movie Puss in Boots that discusses him being on his final of his 9 lives and after this one he won't come back, she was able to kind of conceptualize death through that, which I was always very grateful that she just kind of seen that movie and had kind of an idea.
Yeah.
And then once or twice after that, she would refer that Indy had fainted, and so we would have to say, no, remember, she died.
Yeah.
But suicide was the hard one, I think, to explain it to a 4-year-old.
Yeah, of course.
The way that we did it was that I think, if I can remember rightly, and it was a lot better than this, but it was about that there's different types of sad. And there is a sad that gets so big because your brain isn't working properly that you think that you shouldn't be alive or can't be alive anymore. And that at that point I brought in some perfectly reasonable brainwashing, and I said that her brain wasn't that way and her brain could never get that sad, because I didn't want her to be afraid of being sad thinking, if I get too sad, I'll die. So we had these conversations about, if your brain works normally like yours does, you'll get sad and then it'll go away and then it'll come back and it'll go away and it'll never be that big.
And that's where I say you need to stay connected, because concepts for a child they develop over time, even as adults. I think the concepts of a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old are totally different. Yeah. So, but the experience for each of our kids was completely different because they were all in different stages. Some of them didn't live here. We talk about, especially with Indy's bio siblings, they're like little pieces of Laura. But also now when you look back on it, they're also little pieces of Indy, and because Indy was such a big personality.
One thing I was struggling with in the beginning, and I rang Standby. So Standby is a 24/7 phone service we have here that's staffed by peers. Can't remember if they actually have lost someone or if they can just identify as having experienced suicidality. But either way, they're peers, fully trained peer counsellors. And you can ring them as much as you like. I rang them a lot in the beginning, in the first few days, because my brain was trying to show me images of what it thought her body would have looked like or what the death would have looked like. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm someone who, I grew up the daughter of a detective. I was that weird kid that would look at roadkill and how does this work? And I never wanted to harm anything, but I was always very interested in what happens. I rang Standby. I'm like, why is my brain doing this? What is wrong with me? And they were amazing. They were like, absolutely nothing. You'd be surprised how many people do that. And because we were in the situation where we could not view Indiana in any way after death, I wasn't even allowed to go and hold her hand under a sheet. You're not getting near that body. So they explained to me that my brain goes, look, we had this person and they were walking around and they were chatting and they were there, and now they're not, and we know that they've died, but we don't know what they look like now. So when some cultures have viewings, psychologically that can ease that a bit. Your brain goes, oh, they're dead. But because mine didn't get that, it was playing all these pictures. And it turned out that my 13-year-old was going through the exact same thing. And she was like, why am I thinking about this? Why am I constantly trying to picture this? And because I'd received that support, I was able to pass that to her, like, hey, wow, me too. Let's walk through this together. We're not horrible people. We're not morbid. We're not, you know. And I think, you know, we're so lucky to be in a country where, even though things aren't perfect, if you wait a while and if you're bad enough, you will get some free health treatment. So my children were able to eventually access some low cost or free psychology around that.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Your thought was, is my marriage okay?
Yeah. So for our marriage, I think we just come off around 2 years of just the most horrendous crap, really. I mean, it had been a very, very dark time. And then there'd been a period of, I don't know, I think we get 2 months of everything looking up and everything being great. And then Indy passed away. And when Indy passed away, we grieved extremely differently. My head went to my kids and trying to help them through it emotionally. And to be quite honest, trying to make sure they didn't get taken back into care, because with my trauma, my brain went, well, that your child has come home. They've been home for, I think they'd all been home for 5 years at that point, and has now taken her own life. So I was absolutely convinced that any minute now, child safety were going to come and take them all again because I'd failed. And so I had to clean. I had to clean the house. I had to make sure they were getting to school. I had to make sure that they were, you know, that their grief was being managed.
I went kind of down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to explain it. It was actually the police that said, dude, you need to get yourself off to get some therapy.
Did you?
I think, yeah, I did. I don't really think that's overly what helped me. I think it was just purely time and persistence
I'd
from
never seen that. Yeah.
from everyone.
I'd never seen his type of grieving before. I had
It was, yeah, it probably, if you were to observe and go and make an assumption, you would go, this dude's on meth.
Exactly. Like he was on meth. He was more methy than people on meth.
Because I've had issues with stimulants before, but it was a bigger thing. It wasn't just about the grief. It was a lot of Indy's friends were coming to were disclosing abuse. They were disclosing assaults, stuff that I was passing on to police and everyone, probably in the wrong way. It was Indy's writing sent me in the rabbit hole, because there was also symbolic stuff that she left behind, like little pages marked in books about conversations that you could relate to, real things. And I tried to link everything that I found of Indiana's. I tried to link it as part of this altruistic manifesto. I was in the rabbit hole.
Were you accepting of each other's grief?
I didn't know that that was a type of grief. There's an organization here called Ladybird, and they are for bereaved parents of any type of death, and they will match you with a mentor who kind of rings you for 18 months and helps you. And my mentor was the one who explained to me that, and I wish I had prepared and got the two different types of grief, but there's like the type that slows you down and there's a type that speeds you right up, basically, is this theory. And he was obviously going through the speeding right up. I had just, you know, purely selfishly, I had just come off 2 years of him using substances, and I hadn't been aware because I'm very naive to those sorts of things. And I knew he hadn't returned to using substances, but I was like, what, this is the same. This is more of the same. And this is actually worse, because there'd
be meltdowns and stuff.
Massive, the anger. So she died in the September, and I had in my head given the marriage until the new year, and I was going to leave with all these kids and make us homeless, which I've done before in a previous marriage. It was the last resort. I couldn't put up with it. And I look back now and I go, well, obviously he had the right to manage his grief in the way that he wanted to, or that he could, I should say, not that he wanted to. And some days it would be, let's go out to the shops and we're going to make 8 people laugh. I'm like, please don't. And it would be like, he'd follow them and he acted like he was on a podcast, and he'd be like, hey. And I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I think, and it's like, obviously now we're 2 years in, and the amount of work that he's done internally on himself is incredible. But I was absolutely bereft is the word. I was completely alone. Nobody in my life, and this is going to sound so petty and so childish. No one cared about me and how I was feeling. It was all Khan. It was Khan lost his daughter, Khan and Indy. And I remember just sitting there and going, I was her mum. I was her mum first. Me. Which, it's something that I still have a bit of resentment for, because I think when I think about, again, anecdotally or in movies, TV, how women are treated when they lose a child, I got none of it. No one was helping me cook, clean. How are you feeling, Laura? How are you? No one cared.
That's
So that was
fascinating.
hard.
That's fascinating, because in America, well, in my experience, I don't know about in America, in my experience, it's all about the parents. It's like they don't remember the brother, the sister, any extended family. It's all about the mom and dad.
I mean, I drive myself crazy. Is it because she was in care, but she'd been home for 5 years? I'd well established myself as, you're doing okay, your mum. But I have been treated appallingly. I've had people level
so
all sorts of accusations. It's terrible. And to be honest, I get people, or at the time, coming to me for an explanation of his behavior. And I would say, go and talk to him. How dare you? If you're not ringing me with condolences, don't ring me at all. Go and talk to him. But yeah, I did kind of, the lesson around boundaries there was really good. That he does his thing, I do my thing. But I'm really glad that we did come back together, because I think that would have been a horribly sad thing if that had ripped us apart. So I don't know what clicked in that January, but it was like, okay, click. And he started to become more, I guess, typical. Like his goals became more typical. The things that he was trying to do to cope were more typical.
There's a few things that I was doing. So I'd go down to the local Buddhist temple, which is really, really cool. I started studying Islam a little bit, and I think I don't anymore. But I think the prayer with any religion is quite meditative, and I think that helped quite a lot. I'm not hugely religious for a number of reasons, but yeah, all that helped. I quit the medical marijuana and any, like, I've basically been on some sort of medication or marijuana since I was 14 up until 2 months after Indy died. So
Oh, wow.
so yeah, and I've been completely clean since. And I'll say, like, medication, your pharmacy medication was just as bad as anything else for me anyway. But that's partly in respect to her letters, which we haven't even spoken about. Was her letters? But
We need a part two.
Yeah. I was
really,
thinking
because
that
her
before.
letters and her artwork, all the things was amazing.
My lesson in all of this, and it's a harsh one, and you have to do it with love. If you're going to do it with hate, don't be together, is you really have to have your boundaries. And you really have to honor that other person, no matter how close you are, how much you love each other, is their own person. They are doing what they're doing at the end of the day. And I think when you've been through a bereavement, you need to do what you need to do. So the way that I coped through that was, what would I be doing if he wasn't here? I could sit there and go, he's not supporting me. Everything's about him. He's acting like the dad and I'm nothing. And I had to go, okay, just take him out of it mentally. Take him out of it. What would you be doing anyway if you were a single mum, or if he dropped dead tomorrow, which I, at the time, probably wouldn't have minded. And I used to go, okay, I'm going to walk the walk anyway. I'm going to work on whatever it was, my mental health, whether it was my spirituality, whether it was planning to try and get back to work, back to uni. And I did the things that I would do anyway. And I hoped that his journey would bring him back in, which it did. I was just doing me. So if the marriage had ended, which, let me get it straight, I'm very glad it didn't, I would have been walking the exact same path as I am now, which was back to work, back to uni, making meaning out of what had happened, supporting my babies, trying to take care of my own mental health, so that if my husband did kind of get to the point where we could come back together, I was already that not fully healed, but was doing the full amount of healing and things that I would have done regardless, which I think is a good thing to do before beginning most relationships. If you can get yourself to a point where you're very healthy and you're walking through life the way that you want, and someone comes along and complements that, you're not looking to that other person for that healing or for that support. That's probably always
so
the idea.
important. That
Yeah.
is
So that was
without this kind of
yeah.
grief and death.
Yeah.
It's that what you just said is so important. That you
Yeah.
have to
And
be
it
two
was
healthy wholes. Like,
yeah, and
you
I'm
don't
so
complete
grateful for
each
the
other.
lesson. Yeah, so grateful, 'cause especially being someone with BPD. At the beginning of our relationship, he was everything. He had to be okay, or I wasn't okay. And if he was in a bad mood, my mood was off for the day, and I was panicking. And how do I fix him? And obviously, we've been together 8 years, so that was very early on. But I think being in a healthy relationship lets you kind of outwork some of your stuff sometimes in your own way. But when he started to kind of, I don't want to say like, oh, he was behaving better, but the anger had stopped, the outbursts. It was a lot easier to kind of come back in together, but it's not been linear. It's been very tricky. I'd say the last 6 months, he's been able, and obviously this is someone who's also got massive amounts of depression, trauma of his own from his childhood. The last 6 months, he's been able to go, how's Laura feeling? I think is what I'm noticing. I'm noticing things like I'll mention something, and within the next few days, there'll be some kind of response, whether I say, oh, this thing is really annoying me, and he'll go and fix it or whatever it might be. I think for the first year and a half, he couldn't think about how I was feeling. I think he couldn't. And encouraged now, because I don't know what a healthy timeline would look like and I think it's very individual. I was worried that I wouldn't start to see that come back at all. If I have to be a solo unit within a marriage for the rest of my life, that's going to be very sad. And so I was hoping that wouldn't be the case, and it wasn't the case. And it's such a cliche, but I truthfully think now, having gone through some horrendous years, we're stronger than ever.
That's amazing. I have
Yeah.
to say, both of you are, in all my conversations with you, you're both so honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is such, you don't see I have not seen a huge amount. People are very, not sharing a lot. And you're both just so honest that it's so beautiful. I tend to be pretty honest. So I
Yeah.
really love that.
We built our whole marriage on that. Like literally our first date, I get in the car, like we were dating. He was 39. I think I was 32. Both been in other marriages. We get first date. I get in the car. He's like, right, here's all the trauma. Here's all the shit I did wrong in my last, Here's all the stuff I did wrong in my last marriage. Here's all the things about me. What's yours? And I'm like, okay, here's all mine. Because we were just sick of playing games and, dancing around. And we knew, okay, do I want to spend any more time with this person? Yes, I do. So we've
What
always
date was
been like
that?
that. Hey, first date, the first second we got in the car, he
Oh,
picked
I
me
love
up.
that.
And it wouldn't work for everyone, but it worked for us because there was no finding things out. There was no, I've got to pretend that. No, I'd had my kids taken away 2 days before. I'm like, no, mate, like this is not a thing that we can just kind of, let's have fun and see. You're probably going to want to run. But he was thinking the same thing. She's probably going to want to run, which neither of us did, thankfully.
Can you talk a little bit? I don't know, whichever one of you wants to speak about it, about her writings.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm probably the good one because I don't like using the word investigated too much with suicide. It's an appropriate word, but investigations also kind of linked to police. Police leads to doing something wrong, and that's why we don't use the word commit, or we try to reduce the word commit. I'm not too offended by it, but I do completely understand it because at one point suicide was a sin, and even in some countries today, you will get in trouble if you attempt suicide.
You'll be executed for attempting suicide.
Yeah. Something we saw on the news the other day. So I explored them. They definitely put me in a rabbit hole. So her letters were written over a period of time. We know that they're at least about 2.5 months in the making. And to go back just a little bit before that, Indiana had been at a flexi school or alternative schooling, and she basically passed all of her work 2 years above her level. Then Indiana said they'd said it's time to move on to mainstream schooling and we've got nothing less to teach you. And that's what happened. And then her first assignment was Romeo and Juliet. Don't know a lot about Romeo and Juliet, and I know more now than I did before. But it's basically a play of teen suicide. It's not meant to glamorize suicide, but if you're a teenager, it doesn't really matter what it's meant to be. It's what they feel it's going to be, I think. She was already planning us, so I don't think it's one of her core reasons. Quite a few of her letters are dated, and a lot of her writing is dated. And the first letter is dated as a day she was working on her draft for an assignment on Romeo and Juliet. One of the things about Romeo and Juliet is a missed letter or letters not being received. I believe that had a little bit to do with her writing and the way she wrote them, the way she left them. So she wrote a bunch of notes on her phone. I did find a draft, an email draft. So they weren't in a phone. I went into the metadata and each of the notes were created between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the day she died. So she died just before midnight on the 23rd of September. Yeah, so I believe what her plan is that the police would find her phone, and I know that because in a book left in her bag that was near where she died, in a notebook, she literally said everything you need to know is in my notes app on the phone. It's unlocked.
She put that on Instagram as well.
Oh, did she?
So
I didn't see that.
Instagram, before she took her life, there's like, I can't remember what it's called. You got like the little thing you can write above your picture. It's not your bio, but it comes up and it said notes app phones unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would have been, I don't know whether if she wrote that for her friends, maybe if the phone wasn't found. She wanted these notes to be found. There was no doubt about that. There's a whole bunch. Her main ones for her reasons, for her conscious reasons, were on the phone. Then in her room, there was a whole bunch of little handwritten ones. And then we found more kind of unfinished letters. And these were dated all through those last 2.5 months. So I believe what she was intending to happen was those handwritten ones. She wanted us to have them immediately, but I didn't want to disturb the crime scene, so to speak.
She was living at my mum's, and I'd asked the detectives if I could go and inform my mum and my nana. I said, if the police turn up, my nana will die. And so they let us do that, but they said, please don't touch anything in her room. Yeah,
I turned on a light, and I knew she'd leave stuff behind. One of my letters, and you only really need to Google my name and have a little bit of a search, and you'll find a lot of the stuff. I do post it, so I think it's important. She tells me there's actually 3 words when I talk about how I've gotten better. It's amazing the power of a 15-year-old girl's words, but she just simply says, but please heal. And then she kind of ties that to me staying clean. She ensures that everyone knows who it's addressed to, because she just says dad on it. And she puts a book character in the letter and that kind of links it to me because I'm the one who introduced her to those books.
Bit of a trigger warning, I suppose, but she slightly cut and put thumbprints over the notes, and she did that because she knew that people would say that she didn't write them, that it wasn't her handwriting, which is exactly what people came out and said. But because she had done that, it was almost like she'd gone, yeah, you're not gonna. Yeah.
Who did the people think wrote them?
They never said. They just said that she didn't.
Because there's some allegations in her writing, those people don't, or person more so, would want to distance himself, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's exactly what's happened. I don't think anyone realized how complex Indiana was, and that's the purpose of the letters. I think that we try to simplify suicide, And I think that's really dangerous. And I think that's one of the reasons we're just not getting it better. It's like she was relentlessly bullied at school. She probably gave as good as she got as well.
But don't you think it's like, it's not one thing. It's like one thing and then another thing. And then, it's like.
We talk about that so much because obviously, you know, Rennie sort of touched on them being in care, but obviously they went into care for a reason. And I had so much guilt. Like I think any mum whose child suicides obviously has bucket loads of guilt. But then when you can't even comfort yourself and go, well, at least I gave him a good childhood. At least I did my best. I couldn't do that. I still can't do that. I have to be honest and go, you know, she didn't have the worst of the worst experiences, but she had some horrible, horrible experiences as a young child that I was responsible for. And, you know, that ties back to me having not been diagnosed, not being medicated, all of those things, but it's not an excuse. And I take responsibility for that. But I think that sometimes I when I'm being really mean to myself, one thing I have been taught to do is to try and think other, try and, counteract those beliefs of you're just a walking piece of crap who doesn't deserve to breathe air. You kind of go, well, let's challenge that thought, Laura. And so I think about, and obviously everything I'm talking about is objective. Any kind of abuse or anything that you witness as a child is horrendous. But I think about these young people that come from these war-torn countries who have seen their families executed in front of them, who have seen these horrendous things, and they cope. They find ways to cope through it. They become fully functioning members of society. They may have scaffolds in place as far as needing support, which is fine. But they go and make meaning from that. They don't go and take their own life. And I always think, what's the differentiator? And I think, like you say, it's so multi-complex. Her individual neurostructure, her personality, the chemicals, all of the different things. The substances.
You could even say she sacrificed herself. She was certainly not all knowing. She was a 15-year-old human. If you look at it as what we see is all she did, and I doubt it is. I'm confident that there's a lot more that she's probably deleted, screwed up, and thrown in the bin over those months. I'm absolutely positive of it, but it was a sacrifice, and I mean that in an altruistic way. So that's why I call all this stuff an altruistic manifesto, because she's written certain things to her closest friends, to certain siblings that she's worried about, a generalized letter. She wrote a 1,000-word narrative that helps us understand that it's how she felt. There's quite a few people that don't share their letters, like Laura doesn't share her personal letter, but in another letter that was on her phone, it was addressed to mum and dad. And when I went again into her notes, and when you're copying stuff on your phone, it goes into your little clipboard. And so on the clipboard, so I don't know where she's copied it from, I'm thinking it's her email. So she's using her email as a little draft repository. And under mum and dad, it's got Khan and Laura. And the first thing she says was, I need you to know this was in no way either of your faults.
Does that alleviate a little for you, Laura?
100%. When everyone got their notes back, I was told that I didn't get one. It was an oversight at the police department. And I wasn't doing as well as I am now. That was in the November. And then in April of 2024, we were told to come and pick up her belongings from the police station. And again, one of my favorite memories now for the rest of my life is I was standing in our walk-in wardrobe, putting clothes away, and Khan walks down the hallway with this bit of paper, because I told him, go in the garage and open her bag. Don't open the bag in front of her siblings. And he's holding this bit of paper. He goes, you got a letter.
Oh.
And I think I asked, did you already read it? I think he'd already read it, or I asked him to read it, because I said, I don't want to know if she's blaming me. I don't want to see it yet. And it was absolutely the opposite. It was, the only reason I don't share it is I feel that everything in this has been taken away from me. And again, back to me, make it all about you, Laura, jeez. But that's how I feel. I feel like everything's been taken from me. She belongs to everybody now. That's fine. But that letter's mine. But it does, again, really speak to the fact that she knows that I'm going to blame myself, and that she absolutely needs me not to. She also refers to a little song that I used to sing her during her young childhood when things were bad. And that, to me, the only person who can make me feel better about the kind of childhood she had is her. Mm-hmm. And that song that she refers to reminds me that even though I was doing a lot of things wrong, and I have accepted that, and thank God I had those conversations with her, taking responsibility before she died, that she also remembers all the good days, the days when my brain was working well and I did nice things and I made her feel happy and safe. And nobody in the entire universe could give that to me but her. And so that letter, I think, is the most important thing that has helped me heal, because even when I want to hate myself and beat myself up and say, no, you stay down there, you horrible child abusing piece of crap, the child herself is there saying, please don't. And how can I honor her if I don't honor her wish for me to not go to pieces? In our letter, the mum and dad letter, she asks us to stay okay. She doesn't say stay happy, stay positive. She says stay okay. How can I not honor that very, very simple, just be okay today?
Yeah. That's actually how layered it was. So in my, like when you come back to my letter and I look at the psychology behind it, and I've had this confirmed by some of the world's leading suicidologists and psychologists, so I share it a lot, but she says to me, but please heal. So it's not heal or else, it's do what you can, but then it's stay off the shit, stay off drugs. She's ordered me. And the next section on that letter is, think of it as a knight's honor. Stern would be proud. And Stern was a knight in the Dragonlance books who essentially sacrificed himself so his family and friends could live. And if you knew Indiana, even if you'd read her draft on the Romeo and Juliet assignment, you know that was layered. Like, you could just say, well, someone's just written that, that's just a bunch of words, but no, it's layered to the person. And like her friends' letters are classic examples. They are written in the style that she would have spoke to them in, written specifically going, don't worry about this little event, it's okay. We're so grateful for those letters. But
I actually had if I just jump in, I probably see it on here, the back of my hand here says Mama. That's the envelope that she wrote in her handwriting, and then that's how she signed it off, Indiana. So, and they're really prominent. So whatever I'm doing, they're really right there. You are her mama, act like it. She loved you, act like it. So.
Yeah.
I have to say two things. That first, I can't believe it took 6 months. And I said this to you before, I can't believe it took 6 months for you to get that letter, and how heart-wrenching it was for those 6 months, I assume. To
7,
feel,
nearly 8.
I mean, I can't imagine. And also, there's nothing selfish about the way you're feeling. Like, I hope that you honor and try not to judge yourself, because that she wouldn't want that either. I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're her mom, and I think that's she loved you, and there's nothing selfish about.
I was very fortunate. There was a lot of kind of getting into the spiritual woo stuff here a little bit, but the night or two before she passed, there was so many weird synchronicities of things that people don't say to each other typically, that we just said to each other, almost as if, if you talk about like your higher self or whatever, something already knows. It was almost like those parts of ourselves were having a conversation. I got a little bit tipsy, and I said to her, that none of those things that happened in your childhood were your fault, and you know how sorry. She's like, what is she laughed. She's like, it's all good, G. I know it's all good, G, because that's how you talk in Logan when you're 15. And, just being able to actually say, I actually said that. I actually said, I am sorry. I mean, how many times I'd already said I was sorry, but right then I said I was sorry. And there was this little thing I used to do when she was a newborn baby. We called her Baby Buffle, like beautiful, but like Buffle. And we'd poke her cheeks. We go, Buffle, 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 Buffle. And she was there the night before, 2 nights before with the other kids. I'm like, look, and I did it on her. I did Buffle, Buffle, and it had been years. And so I get to go, she's like, oh my God, Mum. And she let me do it, and the fact that I can say to myself, I poked her little cheeks one more time, and I had the conversation where I said, I am sorry. Do you forgive me? It's all good, G. Like, stop it. Like, they help. I'm so grateful that whatever it is that allowed those things to just be said all of a sudden and be done all of a sudden, we're done.
Beautiful. And what do you hope people remember most about her?
Oh, the bravery, the absolute bravery. Again, I don't discuss method, but lots of people know what the method was. And of course, I wish she hadn't done it. Again, it shouldn't even need to be said. I wish she had not done it. I wish she had got help. But given that she did do it, the bravery that it took to go through with that, whether I agree with that decision or not, which obviously I don't, the bravery of that young woman, what she thought she had to do, and she didn't flinch and she wasn't afraid. I wish she had taken that bravery into diving deeper into healing the things she thought were so wrong and so uncontrollable and so insurmountable about her mental health. I wish she'd been brave enough to go, I might not be able to go into the army. What else can I do? Can I push through medication? Can I try something else? But I still honor that bravery.
The method used, and like I say, if anyone's interested, you can find it, is extremely rare for a child, for a girl, and for that age. And I'll go further. So that was, I had a paper written by a suicidologist, David Lester, and that's been published, not peer reviewed, but published in his personal journals. And I've researched deeply on method, why methods are used, and usually, so with your classic forms that we know of, they're usually thought about long term, and usually long terms, not months like Indiana's, or there's possibly even years with hers, but it's usually in a couple of days. So you'll think about it. Everyone knows about them, so they're not secrets, but you'll make that decision, go, okay, I'm going to do this, and usually it's 2 or 3 days, at least in the research. This is where I think it's important for people to share, because research has been so darkened by people not sharing. But with Indiana's, usually it's a spur of the moment. So I had a friend do the same thing, but he proposed to his girlfriend and she said no, and he planned it. So if she'd said no, then he'd be able to suicide immediately. And Indiana knew about that story. I'd spoken to her about it, and because a lot of people witnessed that suicide, and I said, it's horrible. You all you're doing is passing on the pain. And that was actually the thing I said about suicide. It really just passes along a lot of the pain. But yeah, she'd planned it quite well. There was no coming back. It was her thing. There was no saving her.
So when she'd done her first attempt, she used a different method and was quite unwell. And her dad kind of said to her that he didn't want to go through seeing her die or seeing her dead, or, having to sit by her bedside. And, we never even could have a viewing. So she made sure that everybody's last memory of her is alive, well, smiling. My last memory of her is absolutely perfect. When I gave birth to her as my first baby, they said, do you want to touch the head? And let me tell you, I never did that again because it was weird. It was so weird. But I was like, yeah, sure. And so the first thing I did when she was born was I touched the top of her head. And the day that she left to go back to my mum's house, I'd had a broken rib, and I had, for the first time in my life, taken some oxys, and I have chronic fatigue syndrome. So I'm like, I was dead on this freaking recliner. Like, I barely knew what was going on. And she's, I'm leaving, Mum, going. She came behind me, and she just washed her hair. She just got out of the shower, and she had this particular perfume on, and she smelled of this perfume and of shampoo. And I touched the top of her head. I went behind me on the recliner, touched her head. She came, I kissed her, and I said, I love you. And Indy would never say, I love you too. She would say, kill yourself. That is what she said. That is when I talked about her dark humor, you'd go, love you. She'd go, kill yourself. But no, this time she said, love you, Mum. And I, have that memory of touching the top of her head. And I just, when I talked earlier about finding the small comforts, that's such a beautiful one for me. I never had to, I've had other mums say to me, who have gone to their child's viewing, which do we both think is worse, having to see them or never getting to see them have that closure? And honestly, I don't think I'd swap. I am happy with my last memory of my child. And I think it rounded things off nicely for me.
Anyone who might be listening or who knows someone who might be considering taking their own life, is there anything that you would like to say about that?
Just stay curious and go, let me try one more thing. Let me go one more day. I know it's such a cliche, but I think it is how our brains do work. I never want to get into that old-fashioned shaming people who are suicidal. I think they go through enough, and I'll think how your mother would feel or anything like that. But looking at Indiana, she was able to predict so much, that people would feel like this. There were things that she couldn't predict. She knew that she would miss out on watching her baby sister grow up, but she hasn't seen that little baby sobbing and crying and screaming and trying to work out where her sister's gone, who she loved, who was her safe place. Her other sister, I think she was 6, blaming herself and saying, if I'd been happier, if I'd been like a better sister, Indy would still be here. She didn't predict that. Her sister, who was 11 at the time, again, blaming herself and saying, Indy died because of me. It's my fault. And is now a 13-year-old girl who is still dealing with that after years of therapy. Indy didn't hate anybody. She didn't want to pass that to us. And she didn't know that those kind of things would come. And I think if she had, she would have been even braver to stay and to remain curious. And it is unpopular to say to a suicidal person, think of the people, think of your loved ones. But I don't think that there's much shame in that. It's very objective. We all, ideally, families would be sorry for how that suicidal person is feeling, and we get them help. And if they're not, get away from your family and go find some found family. Go find some people online that will help you want to stay here. I said at Indiana's funeral, just stay anyway. Just, you're feeling like this today. You're feeling hopeless. Just stay for one more day anyway. Just do it anyway. And I think I read somewhere online, your favorite musician is going to put out music that you don't know about yet. Your favorite movie is going to come out with another sequel that you don't know about yet. You're going to meet someone, whether that's romantically or a friend or a mentor, that you don't know exists yet. And if you opt out now, you can be certain that you won't be feeling the mental pain that you're in, but you can't be certain of the multitude of good things that you are going to miss. And if I had Indy in front of me right now and she had stayed, she would be telling us, thank you for helping her look at these different therapeutic options, these different medications. Thank you for helping her stay till her brain got a bit older and she could see things with more clarity. Yeah, I think there's so much that you don't know that you're going to miss and that you're going to cause. That's probably what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I work hard not to glamorize what she did. And the reason I write stuff the way that I do online and stuff is probably some of the most profound words that she'd said was, I want my life to show that mental illness isn't fun. You shouldn't glamorize it. And I've expanded on that. It is a tragedy. I would trade all of this for even a few more moments. I wish she was still here. I just try to make meaning of it. As someone that has persistent suicidal ideation, I can say that it will always go away. It'll always move on. And for others, they just need to find, I'm not a big woo person, but find the glimmers. Is a big saying, and that they are out there. And I think, like Laura said, I'll say it in a different way: remove yourself from the situations that are causing the pain, the depression. It is really hard in this world, but it can be done. Whether move to the country, just change your scenery, do it, even if it's once a year. And you go, okay, for 2 weeks, I'm going to go to the beach, or I'm going to go to the country, or just, yeah. There's a lot of things that we can do. I'd do anything to have her back.
I love that you said, like, I would trade any of it to have just a couple of more moments with her.
Yeah. Even the hard moments. I was actually quite blessed with Indiana that I didn't actually see a lot of that. Like, there were. Yeah, it was a pleasure to know her, and I guess there's no other way to put it. I just wish she was here.
Well, thank you guys so much again. I think you're really brave, because I think talking about it is really I mean, especially if you've had those ideations and all that, like, it's just so brave to both of you just be sharing. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Yeah.
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 Of course.